Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to join us. Letting a few more people get logged in. Fantastic. All right, people will still be joining us along the way, but I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today for Merrifield Garden Center's virtual plant clinic with David Yost. Today, he's going to be discussing the topic that we all need right now, which is fall lawn care. This meeting will be recorded. The intention is that we will send out the recording afterwards, as well as making it available online. If you have any questions, please feel free to communicate them in the Q&A or chat, whichever feature is working best for you. We'll do our best to answer the questions during the presentation. And depending on the number of questions, I may group them together so that we can get as many questions answered as possible. I believe that's everything. And I am going to hand it over to David. Thanks, David.
Well, thank you, Kristen. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Boy, I tell you, the weather has been really beautiful and conducive to gardening. I think all of us have been able to get out there and enjoy time in our gardens. Of course, it's very, very dry. That's the only thing holding us back, but that's manageable, right? We can water, but when the temperatures are cool, the humidity's down, it's a pleasure to be out there. And it is that time of year for pretty much anything you want to do in the garden, whether it's the vegetable garden, trees and shrubs, perennials. So we invite all those questions and ideas and suggestions you may want to offer to the conversation. But our focus today is definitely going to be on lawn care. For a lot of us, our lawns were looking pretty good this spring. You know, everything was looking really nice in April and May. It was cool and wet. The rain kept coming in June. Things were holding up pretty nice. But then as those temperatures started to go up, that combination of wet conditions and hot temperatures, we started seeing a lot of disease issues show up this summer. And where patches of lawn died out with disease, weeds moved in. Also, one of the things is a lot of you that may have put down a weed preventer early spring, when we have wet weather like that, that degrades more rapidly. So again, that opened us up to a lot of weeds and patchy kind of lawn grass in late summer. So now is the perfect time to go in and repair all this and get your lawn looking really nice again and all prepared and ready to get us through for another year of beautiful lawns. So we're going to go through this whole thing step by step. And I do want to hear from you. If you have any comments or questions that come up, please put those into the chat room. And I think I'm going to sort of go through most of my presentation here. And then towards the end of it, we'll leave plenty of time for any comments or questions you might have. So just as it comes to mind, send those to Kristen. She'll be monitoring everything. And then we'll kind of open this up and make it more of a dialogue towards the end. But with that, I'm going to kick this thing off. I've got a short video that will provide us an overview of what we are talking about today. And then we'll come back with some slides and pictures where I'll go in and dig into each one of these subjects in a little more detail. So with that, let's just watch the video, give us some ideas to get started.
I'm David Yost from Merrifield Garden Center, and with the arrival of the fall season, this is the perfect time to talk about lawns. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step process to get your lawn into tip-top condition. But first, let me just give you a little bit of background. So most of us are growing cool season grasses. That means they thrive when temperatures are 50 to 75 degrees and they're getting 1 inch of rain or more per week of water. So that often means for us in this mid-Atlantic area, lawns look terrific in April and May and June, but then as the temperatures start to climb during the heat of summer and there's less rainfall, you'll start to see your lawn suffer a little bit. And when that happens, it starts to lose some density, you might have a few bare spots, and as we approach the fall season, it's really important that we take advantage of this opportunity to get your lawn looking really good again. Because the short days, the cooler temperatures, more rainfall, there's no time better than right now. So we custom blend both grass seed and fertilizer for our region. Our grass seed contains only the top performing varieties for the Virginia, Maryland, DC area, and we have it custom blended by a producer in Oregon to fit your specific needs. So most of us will be using the Merrifield Tough Play. This is a mix of tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass. The tall fescue is the most heat and drought tolerant of all the cool season grasses, and a little bit of bluegrass gives it density and helps to improve its wear and tear tolerance. But it does need at least about 4 hours of sunlight. So if you're growing in a wooded environment or have more shade, and let's say you're only getting 2 or 3 hours of sunlight, you might be more satisfied with the Merrifield Shady Mix. This is predominantly fine fescue with a little bit of bluegrass in there, and it does better competing for sun, water, and nutrients under a canopy of trees. And then we also offer the Merrifield Sunny, which is a Kentucky bluegrass blend, which gives us that dark blue-green, dense, plush lawn that everybody just loves to have, but it also requires a little more of a commitment to maintenance. Specifically, we have to keep it watered during the hot, dry weather, and it does respond by giving it a little additional fertilizer. We also custom blend 2 different lawn fertilizers. Merrifield Select is a starter lawn food. It has phosphorus in it, and that phosphorus is there specifically because it enhances and aids in the germination and the establishment of new lawns. So if I'm seeding, repairing bare spots, putting a new lawn in, Merrifield Select is going to be my fertilizer of choice. Otherwise, I'll be using Merrifield Premium. This is a zero phosphate, slow release fertilizer. It's very long lasting, gives us a nice dark green, consistent color while also building a dense, healthy lawn. So we start out by identifying where we might have some thin areas, some bare spots, and I like to go through and rake these areas clean so that I can assure I get good soil seed establishment. After doing my cleanup and prep work, I will seed the entire area, and then I will fertilize with the Merrifield Select. I like to go back then onto these bare spots or thin spots and also cover that with a little thin layer of compost. This is optional, but if you do put the compost on top of it, I think that helps keep the seed in place. It helps to keep it moist, aids in the germination and the establishment, and of course that compost is also helping to build and improve the soil. It's also important that about 4 or 6 weeks later, after your grass is up and growing, we come back and fertilize it again with the Merrifield Premium. So we take advantage of the fall weather to really help build that healthy root system and get it looking its very best. So that will get you started, and if you have any kind of specific questions or need any help along the way, I hope you'll stop by Merrifield Garden Center to speak with our turf specialists. We're always here to help you.
Okay, so that pretty much goes through everything you need to know about the fall lawn care. But I am going to dig into more detail on each one of those issues that's in there, just so you have better understanding. And the other is, I think it's important that we recognize, well, that's a really good guideline for most lawn situations. Everybody's in a little bit different environment. Everybody's lawn is going to be influenced by our own individual sort of specific circumstances. And when I talk with you about lawns, if you come into the store or just like we're doing today, I think a really good place to begin on this conversation are what your expectations are in terms of the lawn quality goes. Because I think we have to set very clear expectations, have a good understanding of the time, effort, and money it takes to achieve those goals, and go from there. So I have 2 different pictures here to sort of illustrate this. The one picture where I have labeled as sort of the high input that's in there, that's sort of a very traditional, sort of classic looking lawn that's there. See, uniform in its appearance, which is something that people are always interested in, is a uniform, consistent look, free of weeds, nice green color. And this is actually a venue where they host wedding environments. So their level of expectation is very high because, again, if this is your wedding day, you're paying a good price, to host it there. A lot of times you want these sort of high input, sort of really beautiful conditions on there. So to achieve that level of consistency in color and uniformity, it's going to be talking about mowing and watering and fertilizing and pest management goes into it. Right next to that is what I call a low input lawn. This is a large grass area at Green Spring Gardens Park. This is a horticultural facility for Fairfax County Parks. It is equally as beautiful. This lawn area is also utilized for public events and also for sitting and picnicking, and it serves all the same function that's in there. In that lawn, the maintenance program is just mowing. That's it. So if you're up there looking close at it, you would see a lot of different weeds, meaning a mix of a lot of different grasses and annual and perennial plants that are in there. But as long as it stays mowed down and you're looking from a distance, it gives a pretty consistent look. But you can see it's not as dark green. It's really not the same quality of lawn that you're seeing in the high put, but they both serve the same function. They both serve the same purpose. So a lot of times we have conversations about sort of what your expectation of lawn quality is and how much time, money, and effort do you want put there to achieve it. And that's your individual choice. That's not really a place for me or any of our salespeople. Our goal is really to sort of guide you towards what you are trying to achieve. So after you've sort of thought that through or you're weighing those kind of decisions, sorry, I'm moving a little too fast, we get into sort of really selecting what type of grass do I want to grow. We have, if you live down south here in the coastal areas, they are growing down here grasses like St. Augustine grass, Bermuda grass, centipede grass. These warm season grasses thrive down these coastal areas, and they are at their happiest when temperatures are about 90 to 100 degrees. If you move up north, in this area, we grow cool season grasses, bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, tall fescue. They are really at their best when they are temperatures of about 75 or 50 to 75 degrees. So you can see they're grasses that are adapted to northern climates, grasses that are better adapted to southern climates. We live right in this between area, this transition zone. And so what this means is, of course, is we can have very cold, wet winters, we can have very hot, dry summers, and we can go back and forth between these at any given time. So while we have the blessings of where we have probably about 7, 8 different types of turf grass that we can grow in this area, whichever one we choose, it's going to get stressed, right? Because while most of us might be growing cool season grasses, they're going to be stressed during the heat of summer. If we're growing a warm season grass, these are the ones that turn brown. They go dormant in winter. So if I'm growing, for example, zoysia grass, which is a warm season grass, it really looks beautiful in the summer. It's looking really good right now. But as we start moving into October, it begins to lose its color and it spends the winter and early spring dormant, kind of straw looking color. And because people just in general feel like, hey, they want to see it green year round, we tend to lean towards the cool season grasses. So a lot to choose from, but all of them are going to face their specific challenges and struggles when you're growing in the transition zone. So you are in one of the most difficult regions of the country for growing grass. Just accept that as kind of one of the challenges that we face. And if you're trying to maintain that beautiful, gorgeous, perfect lawn, it's going to take a lot of effort. And even then, it's very challenging to try to achieve those results. So what most of us do, the most highly recommended, best adapted turf grass to our region is going to be tall fescue. Tall fescue is what we call a clump type of grass. A seed lands, it germinates, it forms this clump of grass that forms tillers, and then it branches out and it gets denser as it grows. This also gives us a deeper rooting than many grasses, and it's this deep root system that allows it to get more water from deeper into the soil profile. So tall fescue gives us the best heat and drought tolerance of the cool season grasses. It's also pretty adaptable to part shade, meaning if I have 4 hours or more of sun, to full like that all day sun. And it's this adaptability, it's durability in terms of adapting these environments, also quick establishment. All of these lead it to be the most well-suited grass in most occasions for us. Now, another one that you might look at of the cool season grasses is Kentucky bluegrass. Kentucky bluegrass is a spreading grass. As you can see, it forms this rhizome. And because it spreads by this rhizome, it gives it a denser growth habit. It also gives it better wear and tear tolerance as far as like children running and playing on it. It's got a finer leaf blade in there and a darker blue-green color. So Kentucky bluegrass offers us a lot of really good qualities. However, it just doesn't have near as good a heat and drought tolerance. So when we start looking at 90 and 100 degrees, like we can often encounter around here, Kentucky bluegrass gets very stressed out. So that means that primarily if I have bluegrass, you're making a commitment to keeping it watered during drought periods, and it responds to higher fertility. So it becomes just a higher maintenance grass. But each one of these has its own qualities, its own attributes that lend it to be really useful as a lawn. What many times, and what most of us do in most situations, is we're blending these grasses together. So we sort of have the benefit that each one has. So a typical mix that we will use in our area lawns here throughout Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC, that whole transition zone, is going to be a blend of tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass. So that's what we have in our tough play grass seed as an example. This is 95% tall fescue, trying to get the easy care, low maintenance aspects that tall fescue bring, but it's also blended with about 4 or 5% bluegrass to try to take advantage of the density, the creeping, spreading growth in the dark blue-green color. So we mix these and blend them together for specific reasons and purposes go into that. And this is what I'm going to call about the very, very limits on the shade tolerance for tall fescue. So this gets a lot of bright dappled light where sun does get all the way down onto the grass. But this is kind of the very minimum amount of sunlight that you can grow tall fescue in. If it starts to get this level shade or more, this grass, this lawn even starts to gradually thin out and lose its density because of shade, and then sometimes has to go back in and do some overseeding to restore that thickness and density that's in there. So in areas where we don't have sufficient light, areas that I'm going to call sort of a light to medium shade, this is where we start growing hard fescue. So it's got a lot of the similar qualities of tall fescue. However, it's a slower growing grass, a finer leaf blade, so that does better in these kind of low light environments. But it doesn't have the mowing qualities, not quite as good. Again, the durability as far as wear and tear and foot traffic on doesn't live up. But if I'm in an area where I'm getting 2 or 3 hours of sunlight, it's going to be better suited to that environment. So again, this is us blending different grasses where we take some Kentucky bluegrass and we take some hard fescue, mix it together so that we try to get some of the wear and tear tolerance from the bluegrass, the shade acceptance, I'll say, from the hard fescue, and we even mix a little bit of perennial ryegrass in there to help speed up the establishment. So again, we're mixing these together in specific proportions, different types of grass for specific environments that are in there. You do need at least 2 or 3 hours of sunlight to grow grass, right? There are no shade-loving grasses. Or not turf grasses. If you don't get sufficient sunlight, even with the shady mix, it's going to grow during the fall, the winter, the spring when there's no tree canopy. But as the tree canopy increases, as the level of sunlight decreases, eventually those grasses will will fizzle out. So where you have heavy shade, I will often talk to you about maybe you need to take another look at your landscape. Maybe it's more of a woodland garden with pathways, stepping stones, alternative ground covers, some native plantings, ferns, sedges. There's other options for that area. But again, turf grass gives us that ability to walk on it, play on it, mow it, some of the different things that go on. Now, the other thing I wanted to emphasize with our shade mixes or with our grass mixes, we're not just mixing different varieties together based on the use, but we also follow the research data that takes place at Virginia Tech and the University of Maryland. And we use that data to select the most current up-to-date varieties that are in the market. So what they'll do is they put these turf trials out, if you can see this, like these little patches or squares, and they put those out for testing and evaluation. And then the top rated varieties go onto their recommended list. And this is updated each year. So we have trial independent study evaluations of these grasses and how they're doing under our local conditions. Now, this is really to serve sod growers, golf courses, people that are in the profession. But we take all of that information and we work with a seed producer in Oregon and have it all mixed to these specifications. So this is a pitch for our grass seed because we are a local company and we can use that local data to mix and blend these for the specific uses and goals and objectives that you might have in the environments that you're growing under. So that's my sales pitch on that. So after you've evaluated this, set your goals, thought about what you want to grow, the different types of grass, then the other part I'm going to talk with you about is the scheduling, the time that goes on here. Prime time is about September 1 to October 15. This year, because August was so nice to us and the temperatures dropped down, and we started having consistently temperatures in the 70s and 80s, even since mid-August, I had a lot of people, and I started saying, yeah, even as early as August 15, we started seeding. So right now are really ideal conditions for growing cool season grasses because of the cool temperatures that we're experiencing and that we hope to continue having as we move forward into fall. So right now is the best time of the year to be planting grass, to be fertilizing it, to getting your cool season grass set up for a beautiful lawn throughout the year. So I use this chart a lot because I think it says a lot. If you can just hang with me through this a little bit, you'll understand why I'm keep emphasizing the fall as the time of year for doing all this. So we are right here at the beginning of fall. We're at this end of the chart, right? And what we're looking at is the days are getting shorter. We see that the temperatures are getting cooler. And under the short days, the cool temperatures, a lot of our plants start setting flower buds. So if you start to look at azaleas and dogwoods and rhododendrons and so many of our flowering plants, many of them, their flower buds are initiated now by the short days and cool temperatures. Cool season grasses are no different. You may not see it, but the flower buds are actually forming at this time of year. You may not even think of your lawn as a flowering plant, however it is. And what I'm trying to show with this little chart is if you look at what's going on below ground, so this white line we see here is to represent what is going on below ground. And so the plant, it's actually, this is where our root growth starts taking place as we move through September, October, November, even well into December. As long as our soil temperatures are staying pretty well above 50, you're getting a lot of root growth taking place. And what the plant is doing is these stored carbohydrates. This is stored food reserve. As animals store up fat for the winter, plants store up carbohydrates. And this takes place in the crown and the roots. So it kind of makes sense that the carbohydrate storage and accumulation is taking place now. So right in here, this is where the root growth is taking place, the storage and accumulation of carbohydrates is taking place. Above ground, the part that you're actually seeing, the part you respond to, is this bright green line, this sort of neon green line. So your lawn has slowed down. It kind of stopped growing during the hot summer months, but it will start to green up. The thing that's holding us back right now are the dry conditions. But the minute we start getting some rain, you're going to see your lawn start to grow, and you're going to see it begin to grow. So in this September, October, November, maybe even into December time period, what you start seeing is the grass. I'm on the wrong line. The grass above ground, it greens up, but its growth rate slows down. Below ground, the growth continues. So what we're trying to do is set all this up. If we fast forward to next spring and this whole cycle reverses, days start getting longer. Well, suddenly, you know, in April, when your lawn starts growing, is right about mid-April, this is where the growth season hits, because your plant, your lawn, is actually producing a flower now. So above ground, the vegetative growth shoots way up. And right here at about mid-May, that's when it starts flowering. So your grass is like growing 2 or 3 inches a day because it's in its flowering stage. All this stored food reserve that has happened all the winter is now being depleted as it supports the flowering growth, and then it starts slowing down through summer. So there's a lot to look at, but it explains why we want to be seeding and fertilizing at this time of year, because our soil temperatures are warm. So we get good germination that's on there. We're trying to maximize getting the roots established, getting our grass established so we're all set up and in good condition as we approach into next year in spring. So again, the timing is just so critical that's on there. So let's say you have these bald spots and areas that you need to thin out in your lawn. What I like to do, just like we saw in that video, is I'll go through and kind of rake up some of the dead grass and debris that's on there, because I want to get good soil seed contact. I want that seed not to get caught up in the thatch layer, but actually down here to the soil. Grass needs sunlight to germinate, so we don't want to bury it. We can just put a thin cover, like I'm saying, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, just enough compost over top of that grass seed. And that's basically to, I think it helps cover the seed, keep it in place, hold some moisture in there, and helps in the aid in the germination of the grass. Now, I'm trying to show that germination of that seed is a process, and that process depends on both temperature and moisture. So when I've just seeded my lawn, I really like to water it once, maybe even twice a day, not deeply, but enough to keep that seed damp, because the water has to permeate through the seed coating. Once it does, it activates enzymes in there that start the growth process for your grass. And you don't want to put too much seed down. This little grass that's coming up, that's to give you a visual idea of about the density of the grass seed. We want that grass seed to have a little bit of elbow room. So as it grows, it will continue producing additional shoots, and it will thicken up and fill in. I have so many customers that feel like they need more. They'll put grass seed in there so thick and so dense, it all grows up together. It sort of gets congested, it's competing with each other, and then the whole thing tends to collapse. So with seeding rates, we want to follow the recommendations on the bag. And if everything goes well, and you're good with your watering, you'll see little grass coming up like this in about a 7 to 10 day time period in matters of tall fescue. Some of the other grasses take a little bit longer to grow. So again, optimum soil temperatures are right at that 60, 65. So now in late summer, the soil's still warm. We're going into fall. If you keep it watered, you couldn't ask for better seeding conditions we have right now. Now, at the same time as seeding, it's very helpful if you want to put a starter fertilizer down with it. Starter fertilizers have phosphate. This middle number, you can see where it said our select is a 14, 18, 14. So we put that phosphate in there specifically because this aids in the germination and the establishment of the roots on the new grass seed, right? So if I'm seeding or sodding, I'll put down Merrifield Select. And that's just, again, to provide good, balanced nutrition and aid in the establishment of the roots, because we really want to get our roots established now in the fall. Another really good starter fertilizer I want to bring to your attention. This is a specialty product It's a starter fertilizer. It also has, I think something, if I remember, yeah, 22% phosphate in there. So it has the high phosphate, it has the nutrients in it. This also has a weed preventer. And I'm bringing it to your attention because this is chemistry that it's probably been around for at least 10 years, but a lot of us are not familiar with it because in general, most weed killers and weed preventers cannot be used at the same time as seeding. This is an exception. What's cool about this product is you can use it at the same time as seeding. It's providing that starter fertilizer, and it allows the grass to germinate, but prevents weeds from getting established. So if you are doing like a major renovation, or if you have a history of problems with weeds coming up in your lawn, I think it's well worth the additional expense, or something you should certainly consider, because we do have winter weeds. What will happen is at this time of year, at the same time your grass seed is germinating and growing, there are weed seeds that begin to germinate and grow. So they will grow in like little seedlings like this. You won't notice them in the fall of the year. These little seedlings, though, live through the winter time, and next spring they explode into view as chickweed, bittercress, dead nettle. So if that is an issue for you, then you definitely want to come talk to us about this product. And it comes in a couple different sizes, one for 4,000, 5,000, 1,000 square feet. So you can buy as much or as little as you want. So let's say you've done this and you've gone through the steps where, hey, you raked out the lawn, you seeded it, you fertilized it, spread a little bit of compost on it, keep it watered. That baby grass starts growing in. About 4 to 6 weeks later, as the little grass starts to show up, you'll want to fertilize it again. But for our second application, we're going with a 0 phosphate. Again, you see this middle number is now down to 0, because that phosphate, the only time we're going to use it is when we're trying to get the grass established. After that, we go on to kind of what I call a maintenance fertilizer, which in this case would be our Merrifield Premium. We formulated these fertilizers again, so they're 50% slow release, which means it's going to be long lasting. It's not just going to wash away. It's not going to burn the grass, and it complies with all the state and local guidelines as far as the amount of nitrogen, slow release rates, the 0 phosphate, and all that. So you don't have to think about it or do too much homework, because we've already done that work for you. This is a recommended schedule for you to follow as far as fertilizing your lawn this fall. When I have low, medium, and high listed there, what that really means, those are kind of what your expectations are. So back to where we started. If you just are doing sort of utility turf, you just want to keep grass alive on the lawn, and you're not in competition with neighbors or even trying to achieve anything, that's really that fantastic. I'm putting you in the low category, which means I'm going to fertilize it once this fall. So maybe I fertilize it once in October, figure, hey, that's good enough for me. You might decide that you're in the better home and gardens category, and you take a lot of pride in the lawn, a lot of enjoyment in it, and you're trying to maximize the density and the color in there. So I'm going to put you on the high program, which means I might fertilize it in September, October, and November. So you decide where you want to fall within this spectrum. Generally, what we are recommending when you see our publications, the literature, when you come in and talk to us, we're usually going to direct you towards this middle of the road route of maybe fertilizing it twice in the fall. Again, these are all based on what your goals, your expectations are. It's not a really exact recipe that's in there, but we try to get you maybe these 2 applications. So just as an example, if I was out doing my seeding and restoring my lawn, I might do all that now and use my Merrifield Select, come back, like I said, a month later, 6 weeks later, and then hit it with that Merrifield Premium would be an ideal solution. Or like I said, you can take that higher or lower as you want. The other thing is to help you keep track of all this, because it's confusing. We do have this year-round lawn care calendar available in our stores, and it really has 2 different calendars in here. One that you're seeing there are instructions for if I'm seeding. If I'm not seeding, then there's another one that's orange in color that's going to go more into weed control and other issues. And if I'm not seeding, that takes us down another path. So we have this calendar that offers you month by month information. Ask us for that at the plant clinic. We come and visit, because we're just really hoping the more that you see it and understand what we're doing behind the scenes, you'll have a better understanding and appreciation of value, what we can offer when you come in to see us. So I'm going to take a breather, see if we have any questions or comments from you regarding what we talked about the last 30 minutes, or anything else that might be on your mind.
At this moment, no questions have come through. So you can take a breath and then we can move on.
Okay. So a couple things that come to mind. A lot of times we get questions regarding weed control. I didn't bring a lot of those products in because really our goal is, I would love to spend this fall doing the establishment, like I said, doing the seeding, the fertilizing, the top dressing, get our lawns looking great this fall, and then come back in spring and deal with weed problems. That's really the preferred way, because most of the time, if you go out and you spray your lawn with weeds, that's going to give you a 2, 3, or 4 week delay before seeding. Okay. And other than that one specialized product, you can't really do that. So let's focus on getting our lawns established in fall and manage weeds next spring. If we don't have any questions, I brought a couple bonus slides with me, and we'll just go back to that.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic plan. Thank you.
All right. So this is a little bit of follow-up, or more detailed conversation about fertilizers and exactly what they are and why we use them. So if you look at plants, all plants, we're talking about lawns today, but all plants really need about 18 different specific minerals and nutrients to live and grow. So we look at them and we base them in these big different categories. So a macronutrient means that's needed in larger quantities, right? So they're all important, but it needs higher amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And so when you look at a bag of fertilizer, you see 14, 18, 14. Those numbers are percentages, and they would always be nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. They'll be in that order. This is all required by law. So that Merrifield Select, 14% nitrogen, 18% phosphorus, 4% potassium. And we adjust those rates of application and concentrations based largely on what type of plant you're growing. These other minerals, magnesium, sulfur, calcium, it also needs in significant quantities, but maybe not quite as much. Then we have these micronutrients in here: molybdenum, copper, zinc, manganese. These are all the little minerals that the plant gets from the soil. So if you really want to maximize and get the very best results out of these products, we will tell you to send a soil test in, for analysis. This is a service that's offered through Virginia Tech at the soil testing laboratory. For in-state residents, it's $10. If you're out of state, I think it might be $15. But you send them a little box of soil along with a check for $10 or $15. They will run an analysis, and about a week later, you get results back. And what they're doing here is, if you look at this, they're measuring the phosphorus, the potassium, the calcium, magnesium, the zinc, molybdenum, copper, iron, so on. They're measuring what your soil pH is. Is your soil acidic or alkaline? And then you will get recommendations on a fertilizer based specifically on your soil types. So this is a step that is totally optional. In fact, most people don't do it. But if you take the time and effort to doing it instead of these kind of generic guidelines I'm giving you, it allows us to drill down on exactly what would be best for your lawn. So it's a really terrific thing to do. It's an excellent service. I would encourage you to do it, but it's not a required type of thing. So that will come back to you. And the other that I like to talk about is with our fertilizer recommendations, we'll usually get a recommendation of whether to use lime and if we need how much lime. Without a soil test, we're kind of in the realm of guesswork. The soil test actually measures the pH and tells us that. The importance of this is the ideal pH for your lawn is going to be right about this 6.2 to 6.8, right in this kind of range. Because at this point, right about where this line goes down, this telling me, hey, nitrogen is available, phosphorus available, potassium's available, sulfur, all the nutrients are there, easily available for the plant, right? As your soil becomes increasingly acidic, the availability of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, all these plant essential nutrients become less available to the plants. They might be there, but they're not able to absorb or pick it up. So this is where having that soil test can be extremely valuable. This, again, a lot of when we're formulating our fertilizers and such, we're keeping all this in mind, and we're formulating, mixing them really for our region and our kind of soil conditions. So now I even finished up with my bonus slides, and let's see if we've had any questions or comments come in yet.
And my apologies, I still don't have any coming through. I do hope there's not a problem that people are trying to ask questions and they're just not coming in. My apologies if that is what is happening. And I think one of the questions I have personally is you were talking about the turf builder and weeds and how that has a preventative as well. So we mow our lawn, and when it's mowed, it looks green, but it's mostly weeds. Should we do a preventative before or like some kind of weed get rid of? I don't want to say terminate, but before we do the reseeding.
Right. So this is classic because it tells us, hey, there's no one answer for everybody. If you're okay with the weeds, I'm okay with the weeds. So that's one avenue you can take with it. If you were to apply a weed killer, most of those mean I have to wait anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks before I am able to put grass seed out. So that becomes a little bit of an issue. So we would look at, evaluate it. For the most part, I would probably guide you towards, let's skip the weeds, let's get your grass established, and then we'll tackle whatever remaining weed problems are in spring. And that can be done both preventively or with a weed killer. Now, one thing I wanted to also bring up, because there's a lot of people looking for alternatives to just doing turf grass. I keep using and making sure we understand turf grass because it's the function of turf grass that allows you to mow it, that allows you to run and play and walk on it and use it for all those kind of functional characteristics we have. Just because I love grasses, I spend a lot of time studying. I brought some native grasses in with me also, but they're not going to be suitable as turf grass. If you look, like this is a panicum grass, we sell them in our ornamentals. So you can see the size of that grass. That's a wonderful native grass that can be beautiful in your garden or as a framework in the landscape, but not really going to be that functional as a turf grass. I also brought in little blue stem, one of our native prairie grasses. One of my favorites, I have this in my garden also because I love the kind of blue coloration, the blue-green color. You can see they're both beginning to go into their flowering stage.
But I can see this.
So those are nice.
Maybe you can help me.
One other plant that I brought in with me, we're still trying to get our technical things worked out. That's why I'm stalling. But this is Pennsylvania sedge. A lot of people are using this as an alternative to traditional grasses. This will do well in sun or shade. It's not truly a grass. It's a sedge, which means it doesn't have quite the same growth characteristics. But this is one that it doesn't grow much taller than you see it here. So just as sort of a grass-like appearance, just plant it and let it grow, can be real easy. This will also tolerate an occasional mowing if you want to try to keep this a more formal lawn. What it will not tolerate, though, is you're not going to be running and walking and playing on it, because it's not going to have that ability to regenerate, not as vigorously as the turf grasses do. I mean, just a very occasional light treading or walking on, you could do something like that.
Fantastic. David, Danny's going to join you in the room. He is able to see questions, and it looks like we have over 21 of them. So for some reason, it's not showing on my screen. I'll type out.
All right, guys, sorry for that little glitch that's in there, but now I see you are paying attention and you do have lawns. We just, questions, we couldn't see them.
And so apologies if some of these questions have been answered before, since I wasn't in the room. So if you had already touched on this, just let me know and I'll move on to the next one. First question is, what about the height of mowing during different times of the year? Is there an optimal height that you should be mowing?
There absolutely is, and that has a huge, enormous impact on the quality of lawn that you have. So if I'm talking tall fescue, bluegrass mix, which is what most of us have, in the middle of summer when it's hot outside, you want to keep your mowing height up at like 3.5 inches or more, because that's going to give us deeper rooting and a better lawn. As the temperatures cool off later in fall, you can drop that to a little bit lower height, but I never really want to go below 2.5. So hey, 2.5, 3.5 inches, depending on the season, is a good place to be.
All right, next one is, we have a lot of shade and sparse grass in the backyard. What seed would you recommend for this area?
Again, so this, as I was saying, there are no shade loving grasses. This is predominantly hard fescue that's in here. And again, this is where I go down to Virginia Tech and I look at the trials and the evaluations they're conducting. The hard fescue is the best performing turf grass for shade. It still needs 2 or 3 hours of sun. If you're like in heavy shade from a house or a building, this will grow and then it's going to die. And then you go replace it. This is going to grow, it's going to die. If you get into that situation, you really might want to consider doing alternative ground covers, which could be anything like sedge, ferns, woodland garden, stepping stones, a lot of other options beyond turf grass.
Next question is, we've experienced grass dying off when we add a thin layer of compost and thought it might be related to the compost temperature, and that it's too warm for grass or seeds. Is that a concern?
I've seen that happen, but only what I call wrong application or not good application. Compost will heat up. Okay, so we do talk in sweet hot compost, and it can burn the grass. But when I see that happen is when it's come out, the compost was hot and it was put in piles and it sat there in heavy piles for an hour or so. What we really want to do is kind of spread that out as we're applying, because if you're just spreading it out as a thin top dressing over the lawn, you're not going to get the burning. But if I've seen where people take a wheelbarrow and they dump a pile everywhere, and then go back to spread it out. And during that time, it will get some burning in there. So it's unusual, but if you kind of don't put it on real thick, you won't have any problems with that.
Next question is, does the lawn need fertilizer in the summer?
We generally don't fertilize in the summer. If we were to go back to that fertilizer chart, you'll see what I call just an optional half rate application. That's more towards late spring, somewhere I'm going to say like a May 15, June 15 time period. That again is optional. If I want that higher range or that higher level of quality, what I'll do is after the big flush of growth in spring, but before the really hot temperatures in summer, we can do a fertilizer application to maintain more color and better vigor through summer. I really like to use organic fertilizers at that time of the year. So that's why I'm trying to emphasize the fall fertilizer application. But you can step things up and get a darker greener lawn if you want to fertilize it. So we'll oftentimes say twice in fall, once in spring. So yes, you can do that.
Next question is, do you need to aerate before seeding?
Aeration is fantastic. I tend to oversimplify stuff because I want to make it easy and achievable and not get you too discouraged ahead of time. But when our ground is compacted, it's dense, and you're not getting good air and water infiltration in there. If you go through an aerator, which is a machine that pulls up cores of soil, plugs of soil, that helps to loosen the soil, better aeration in there, great to cultivate, and it opens that ground up so you have that good soil seed contact in there. So I am 100% behind it. But again, that's every one of these things is another step of time, money, and effort. But if you want to really go for it, then I am 100% on board with core aeration.
Next question is when do you lime?
Oh, good question. Lime you can do any time of year. It is not really time sensitive. You can do it basically say any time except when the ground is frozen solid. So that's almost any time of the year because the ground rarely freezes. So, you know, if you do a little soil test, we sell a do-it-yourself kit, or there are probes that you can buy, or I really like to send it down Virginia Tech. So that can be any time of year, whether you're seeding, not seeding, middle summer, or spring or fall.
Next question is do you have any info about grub prevention when it deals with lawn care?
Yeah, I took that slide out of my presentation because I just want to talk about the fun stuff. You know, planting grass is a lot funner than killing, or more fun, I should say, than killing grubs. If you have grubs, grubs are active right now at this time of year. Their eggs usually start hatching out by about mid-August, and they hatch out and the feeding has already begun. So if you find patches of your lawn where they're dying out, I would look first. Literally, grubs would be just under the surface, you know, that top inch or so of ground. They're feeding away at the root system and crown of the plants, and that grass will peel right up like a throw rug because there's no roots under, because the grubs are eating on it. So let's check. I haven't seen too much trouble with them this year, but if you have grubs or you've got dying patches, let's check for that. And then you could apply a grub killer right now. So there are grub preventers, but we're beyond the prevention phase. We're right now in the treatment phase if that's needed.
Next question is what is the best product or method to get St. Augustine grass out of my yard? I have patches that keep creeping in.
I'd want to look into that. I have only seen St. Augustine grass growing here in Northern Virginia one time. So I know it is possible, but I'd want to confirm that that's the case. And I'd also want to do a little homework. There is an herbicide, and we sell it, that's called crabgrass destroyer. It might work on St. Augustine. That's something I would want to double check. But I would want to both confirm the identification of the grass and confirm to see if the crabgrass destroyer is labeled for it. But so we can help you, but bring a clump of it, dig up a little clump, bring it in, let's check it out. The plant clinic would really be the best way to handle that.
Next question is for Japanese stiltgrass that has taken over a person's lawn. How do they address this?
So again, Japanese stiltgrass, you've got several options. It's an annual, which means much like crabgrass, it grows during the summer. Right now is the time of year where they might begin to form their flower heads, and a lot of times the seed heads don't really pop out even until October. But one option might be just to mow it frequently and collect the seeds to try to stop the reseeding, and then get on a preventative program next year, because it will die out in the winter. Freezing temperatures kill it, and then the same things that stop crabgrass can stop it on a preventive basis next spring. A lot of times that's the way I like to go for it. If you feel like you want to get rid of it now, you don't want to wait. You need faster results for some reason. There are some weed killers. That crabgrass destroyer I was just describing, or BioAdvanced makes, I think they just call crabgrass control. So we have a couple products that will kill the stiltgrass that does not harm your lawn, and it still allows you to go in and do your reseeding. So So you can use an herbicide, but again, I want to make sure you get the right one. So we'd like to talk to you about that. Or mowing helps at this time of year, just trying to catch the seed heads or knock them down. And then doing a preventative application starting in spring, usually around March, is also an option for you.
Wonderful. Going back to aerating, when is the best time to aerate your lawn?
So fall is an ideal time. So right now is a perfect time of year, but the ground is really dry. I think somebody said this might be the driest August we've had in like 150 years. So if you go out with an aerator on really dry, hard clay, that machine doesn't penetrate into it very well. So if I was going to aerate my lawn, I would say let's water a day or two in advance, just so that when I do get the aerator out there, it will do a better job for you. But yeah, that's really ideally a fall project, which would be, again, this August 15 to October 15 kind of window.
Next question is, what do you recommend for killing nutsedge grass?
Nutsedge, again, is a tough one. We have and sell, and you can buy almost anywhere, nutsedge killer. But what happens is, let's say this is a sedge, this is a Pennsylvania sedge, different one. But this plant, actually, it forms called little tubers down in the ground, little nutlets. So let's say I spray this with nutsedge killer, and the mother plant shrivels up and dies. But there's all these little tubers in the ground, and it grows back. So I spray it again. The plants die. Little tubers sprout, it comes back. So it's something that you have to be pretty aggressive with, which means it's not going to be a one-time application. But it's just called nutsedge killer. It comes in all different sizes, readily available. But it's something that you'll be doing repeatedly, and you'll probably be doing it again next year. So it puts up a fight, but you can get rid of it.
Next question is, any thoughts about using clover? I see this recommended in native plant websites.
Yeah. So I just for fun, that's my clover seed. I tell you, I think now we sell almost as much clover seed as we do grass seed, because people are looking for lower management alternatives kind of thing. So the nice thing is with basically we're going to use white clover. So the white clover, because we sell, I think, 3 different types of clover. The other ones like crimson clover, red clover, they grow up taller. They're annuals. They do well in meadow plantings. But if it's going to be a lawn, you would want to use the Dutch white clover like this, and it can be mixed in with grass seeds so that you have a blend of clover and grass. The nice thing with clover is it's fixing nitrogen, which we talk about nitrogen fertilizers. This essentially creates fertilizer. It's with bacteria that are in the soil. So this is generating and adding nutrients to the grass ecosystem. It also flowers, which is a benefit to pollinators and stuff. So a lot of people are saying, hey, from an environmental perspective, I'm happy and I want to mix clover in with my lawn. Totally, that's a great option. A lot of people are doing that. Trying to grow a clover lawn is almost as challenging as trying to grow a turfgrass lawn, because anytime you try to maintain a monoculture, it's like, oh, well, now I have clover, but I'm trying to keep the other weeds out of it. And we have fewer options on doing that. So a clover lawn, I'm going to say, is challenging, but mixing clover with your grass gives you a really nice ground cover.
Next question is, we have a small lawn that has mottled shade in 75% of its space and full sun in the west. What is the best product for seeding a lawn like that?
Yeah. So when you have 2 different environments, you really are going to have 2 different seed mixes. One of the things that we always struggle with is when people are looking at lawn quality, and there's been evaluations and studies done on this, what a lot of time what people want, what they look at a good lawn versus bad lawn, is they want a uniform, consistent look. So if I'm saying I have 4 hours or under sun, I'm going to be doing the shady mix. If I have 4 hours or over, I'm going to be doing the tough play. So they're 2 different textures, growth rates, colors, they're not going to match up. I've had some people say, hey, I don't care, I just want a green. They'll mix these seeds together. I don't often recommend that because now I have 5 different types of grass. It gets very mixed, patchy kind of look in it. But I have many customers say, well, they don't care about that. If it's green, they're happy. So you could, I would be telling you 4 hours or under, let's use the shady, 4 hours above, use the tough play. Some people that don't really care that much, they'll even mix them together. But I think that's going to give you kind of this, kind of what I call the Heinz 57 look going.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're at 3 p.m. So I think this is where we should cap it off. Kristen, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Fantastic. And I do hope most of the questions were addressed. And as always, you're always welcome to come in, visit us at any of our locations. We have staff at our plant clinic that are fabulous resources. You can always call the store for the same. And Danny is one of our wonderful people who helps answer questions that come through our website under Contact Us. So we have lots of opportunities for you to reach us. To get questions answered if we were not able to address that today. Again, this webinar has been recorded, and we will be sending out the recording along with a thank you for joining us coupon for, no, not for Plant Clinic. I'm so sorry. That's when we do our webinars. Sorry about that. So that just means you have to sign up for a webinar. They're all listed on our website under events. And we do look forward to seeing you again in the future. And I will get my question answer button fixed and be able to address that next time. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks everybody. Again, nothing beats in-person visits. So if you can bring pictures, samples, any of that to the plant clinic, we can talk one-on-one. That's always the best. But if you're not able to do that, send me emails, pictures, and as always, I'll be back in a couple of weeks on the virtual plant clinic.